Beautiful. Thank you for that, Carrie. Going straight into the presentation, first and foremost, we've got our mission statement. We are a Catholic Jesuit university at Seattle University, and really a lot of those Jesuit values stem in that mission statement. So it reads on the screen as follows. Seattle University is dedicated to educating the whole person to professional formation and empowering leaders for a just and humane world. So we really like to always begin these presentations by introducing our mission statement, just because we are a mission-driven institution and it's really the foundation of our university. So what it typically means, we like to break it down into 3 sections. That first section, educating the whole person. When you come here, we don't want you to just, show up for however many years, get your degree, and we kick you out. We really want to make sure that you're growing, not just as a student, but, as a person, as a peer, as a family member, like in all aspects of your life, we want to make sure that you're growing and striving. That professional formation part really comes into play in the classroom. Obviously, we want to make sure that students are getting a well-rounded education and are prepared to go into the workforce right outside of graduation. And then that last part, probably one of the most important parts in my opinion, is that empowering leaders portion. A lot of our students on campus have a really strong passion for social justice, and you'll see that in a lot of different spaces. We don't sell any single-use plastic water bottles on campus, and we're completely divested from fossil fuel use. So those are things that students on campus are leading to make a change, not only on our campus, but really in the local Seattle area in general, and even just across the world and across the globe. So just a little insight to that. And then typically our campus, so on the screen right here, everything that's outlined in that yellow line is going to be our campus. End to end is about 0.9 miles, typically takes about 10 to 20 or so minutes to walk from end to end. Really depends on how late to class you are, maybe how fast to walk you are, that sort of thing. In total, we're a pretty small to mid-sized university, so a little over 7,000 students total. Of that 7,000, a little over 4,000 of those are going to be undergraduate students. So the remaining students would be students in our law school or in grad programs, that sort of thing. And then of those total undergrad students, about 1,200 are going to be transfer students. So we have a very heavy transfer population here on campus. When we say small to mid-size, that really comes into play in our average class size and our student to faculty ratio. So like you can see on the screen, average class size is about 18, and the student to faculty ratio is 11 to 1. So you really get to know your professors very, very well. Specifically, your nursing professors are all, they were all in the nursing profession themselves, so they've been exactly where all y'all are going to be. So they really, really take a strive in helping our nursing students. In terms of our location, you'll see the downtown area is not too far from our campus. So we're in a really cool, unique location with Capitol Hill not too far behind. And we're actually nicknamed Pill Hill because we're located where a couple of different hospitals, we've got 4 different hospitals, Harborview, Swedish Medical Center on First Hill and Cherry Hill, and then the Virginia Mason Medical Center. So a lot of those great opportunities for our students, not just in the nursing profession, but specifically for y'all. That could be where you're taking clinicals, volunteering, shadowing, things like that. And yeah, so just a little bit of an overview of our campus. And getting into the financial aid and the money aspect, I'll do a quick breakdown of what our tuition typically costs for one academic school year. So for this current academic school year, 2023 to 2024, one full year's worth of tuition is about $53,000. The total cost of attendance overall, we calculate to about $73,000. That's going to include things like room and board, textbooks, any other types of expenses or fees. Really, we try and add in a lot of those fees that students and families typically forget about when, financing their education. So for example, if you're not from the state of Washington, you're going to probably travel back and forth between home for breaks and holidays and things like that, which definitely costs money. So we try and add in as many of those costs that students and families maybe don't consider, but maybe aren't billed directly from Seattle University, so they can get a good overall picture of what their full total cost will be. Of course, some of those costs you may not have if you're not traveling from out of state or if you're not living on campus. So that 73,000 number can look a little bit different depending on your situation. But we like to recognize, being a private institution, that number is pretty high, and it's definitely not doable for a lot of students and their families. So we really try and award as much financial aid as possible, whether that's from us or from the aid that you receive from the government. Typically about 91.5% of students receive some sort of aid, and we have need-based aid options available. But again, always going to recommend submitting that FAFSA. A lot of students think that the FAFSA will just qualify them for loans, which is money you have to pay back, but it can actually also qualify you for other types of money that is not money that you have to pay back. So other types of scholarships, grants, work study, stuff like that. We do have our merit scholarship opportunity. So all transfer students are automatically considered for this scholarship just by applying. There's no additional application. There's nothing you have to mark in your application. You'll just automatically be considered for this. It's typically based off of your application materials, pretty much like your GPA. So the range can really depend. Typically, it's about as low as $6,000 per year to as much as $26,000 per year. But again, it really depends on everyone's individual case. But something I do want to point out about this scholarship is that post-baccalaureate students are not eligible for merit scholarships through Seattle University. For those that aren't aware, post-bac students are those that have obtained a previous bachelor's degree and are, again, looking to receive another bachelor's degree. So that's a second bachelor's degree. So if you just have your associate's degree, you're not considered a post-bac student. It's just for those that have already completed a previous bachelor's degree. So those students are not eligible for merit scholarships. They may be eligible for some types of aid from the federal government through the FAFSA, but they're just not eligible for those merit scholarships. We have a couple other scholarship opportunities. Some of them are on the screen right here. Healthy Scholars Program is an amazing program, one we really, really like to highlight here. So those are for students coming from community colleges that have completed their associate's degree and have a GPA of about 3.5 or higher. So you're eligible, if you meet all those qualifications, to apply for this scholarship program. It's a complete separate application. You'll need to write essays. There's typically an interview involved, but this scholarship is about $30,000, and that's split up between 2 years, so $15,000 per year. And all of our scholarship opportunities are completely stackable. So if you were to get your merit scholarship and you were to also receive the ALFE scholarship, those are all stackable, one on top of the other, including anything that you receive from the FAFSA. So great way to make that $73,000 number look a lot less than that. We also have our PTK scholarship. So for those that are in the PTK honors community in community college, that you would receive a scholarship just for being a member. So for those that aren't members, definitely recommend trying to see if you can become one, because it's a great opportunity. And then we're also a yellow ribbon school as well for any of our student veterans or dependent of veterans. So we do have that aid available for you as well. So then getting into the program highlights, first thing that I want to note is that this is a cohort model type of program. So when students come in for their first quarter, you'll be starting with about 80 to 90 other students, generally speaking, and you stay with those students all the way till the end of your program. So you start together, you end together, graduate together, that sort of thing. Y'all are taking the same courses during the same quarters at the same time, so you really get to know each other very, very well. And especially in your first quarter, you'll actually start off with what's called like a health assessment interventions course, and that's where you learn all of the hands-on nursing stuff. So like you learn how to wash your hands, how to transfer patients, but you'll especially learn how to give injections and practice on all of your classmates. So when we say that you get to know your cohort, we really, really mean that you get to know your cohort. So those are just some of the ways that you get close to these people and you spend all 7 quarters with them. The second thing that I want to highlight is advising. So students are required to meet with an advisor every quarter that they're here as a transfer student. You'd meet with your transfer advisor for the first year minimum, and then you would, chat to her about your courses, registration, get help from, like if you're getting settled, figure out how things are going, just that sort of thing. You'll also be connected to a faculty advisor. All of our faculty are nurses, like I previously mentioned, so students will get to see, at least in their second year, every quarter as well. The idea of having a professional advisor is that you get, your feet under you in your first year, you get everything figured out with your classes, and then you get to start talking to, professionals. They'll talk to you, about like the NCLEX, which is the national licensure exam that all students are required to take if they want to become an RN. There's even a class that can help you with preparing for that exam as well. The population health internship is a recent addition to the program, and really the idea behind it is that we're really interested in giving students experience and exposure to population health and like public health. COVID-19 really showed us why it's so important and why it's emphasized that medicine and healthcare don't always really take place in healthcare settings. So it's really, the internship places students within a community. It could be like a school, the homeless population, maybe even like a traveling medical van, really any sort of idea like that. And the purpose is that, you really get to start to learn and listen to those communities, figuring out what problems are within those communities. The second quarter that you're in that, the students really get to create some type of intervention to address whatever problem you've identified. And then in that third quarter, you get to implement that intervention. So one of the most important things about population health overall is just, that having that long-term relationship with the community, which is why our college built that into a year-long internship. It's a great opportunity for folks. Another thing I wanted to highlight is our clinical performance lab, or CPL is what we usually shorten it for. That'll be like all of our nursing students' second home. It's basically where they live. It's $20,000 or 20,000 square foot sort of facility that's housed in our Cherry Hill Swedish Hospital, just a couple blocks outside of campus. It's a great facility, actually pictured here. We have lots of like mannequins that do just about anything, talk, sneeze, give birth. It's also where you'll learn about giving injections, like I mentioned. We have lots of different ways for students to, get that hands-on experience without actually maybe touching real life people for a second. So great opportunities as well. Last thing that I wanted to mention is education abroad. Nursing students typically have a pretty packed schedule, especially if you've taken a look at, like students and studying abroad during the regular school year, which we're on the quarter system, so that's fall, winter, and spring is our academic school year, and then summer is optional. So a lot of times nursing students think that it's just not doable to fit in that education abroad. But we really like to make sure that students, if that's something that they're interested in, there is possibly time for that as well, so students can do their traditional study abroad experience. They have specific ones for nursing studying abroad students, and the purpose being that students have like an immersive experience in a different country while still thinking about nursing. This typically looks really similar to that population health internship I was talking about, just within a different community while studying abroad. Awesome. So I'll get into the application and prerequisite requirements. I'll start us off on the basics, and then I'll hand it off to Carrie in just a second. First things first, for the application checklist. To transfer to Seattle University, nursing students will want to apply through our Seattle University transfer application. If any of you have started filling out an application in the Common App, definitely let your admissions counselor know, just because we want to make sure that you get started on that transfer application. They're completely different. The one thing I do want to highlight is that BSN students will only be able to choose nursing if they choose their start date to be a fall 2024 quarter. The nursing major is not available for any other term. It's a fall start program only, and we only admit students once a year, and students apply a year in advance. So if you're having trouble finding the nursing major while you're applying, that's probably why. As a part of the application, there's going to be a prerequisite form where students will get to include all of their prerequisites. We have 10 of them. We'll go over them in just a second, but you'll include, all of your information. You'll indicate whether or not you've taken them, or if they're currently being taken, or even if you plan to take them in a future quarter. All 10 of them have to be filled out, meaning that students must indicate either one, that they've taken it and put their information in there, or that they have planned enrollment for a future or current term. You can't just leave it blank because it is required to have all 10 of those complete before enrolling and attending here in the fall. There's also going to be a BSN essay that students have to complete. They're typically pretty generic, like prompts, usually like, why are you interested in this program? Why are you interested in SU? And they're not very long either. When students hear essay, they think, 4 to 6 page essays. That's definitely not the case. I would probably word it more so as like a writing prompt. But it is a really great way for us to get to know you and who you are, just because, by only looking at transcripts, it's really hard to get to know someone's personality or maybe their passions and why they're coming into this field. So it's a great way for you to really get to directly speak to your admissions counselor through your application. One of the other things is going to be that resume and activity log. That's really kind of like an acting resume, except everything's already pre-portioned out for you. You just have to fill in the information as you go. Students just need to include details regarding like relevant healthcare experience, volunteer work, medical experience, that sort of thing. We do recognize that it is a privilege to be able to have relevant healthcare or volunteer work sort of experience, especially specific to the nursing field. People just may have like differing circumstances where they may not have been able to have those types of opportunities. So we always encourage students to add any type of experience. It doesn't have to be specific to nursing. I've seen students include, if they were lifeguards over the summer where they were CPR certified, if they were like babysitting or caretaking for a family member. Really anything where you think that the skills that you learned is applicable to working as a nurse, treating patients, that sort of thing. Even if it's just you held a part-time job while you were in school, that's always something that is great for us to weigh in, just because we get to see that while you were a full-time student, you were also working on top of that. So definitely don't limit yourself to only a couple of things. We don't limit how many or what types of things students can input. You can input whatever you want in there. We'll require your official transcripts from any college or university that you've ever attended. We'll go more in depth into this into the next slide, but any institution you've ever attended will need those transcripts. So even if you enrolled at Seattle Central for 1 credit and you dropped that credit after a week, we'll still need those transcripts. And those will be official from any college you've ever attended. So the last couple of things that I'll talk about here are going to be, one, the application fee, which is $60. We do have waivers available, some of them. So if you have completed your associate's degree from Washington, Oregon, California, or Arizona in a community college from one of those states, you can have your fee waived. And it's actually okay not to have your associate's degree completed at the time of application, as long as it's planned that you'll have that degree. So that's potential to get that fee waived. We also have some just for, if it's going to cause financial hardship. So always recommend reaching out to your admissions counselor if you have any questions about different types of waivers that are available to you. And then if you have any official AP or CLEP exam scores that satisfy any of the prerequisites, we will also need those by the December 1st deadline. So if you, took AP stats and you have a qualifying score, we're going to need that before the deadline. And then the last thing is English proficiency. We'll also have a separate slide where we'll go more in depth for this, but this is specifically for international students or students where English is not their first or native language. So if that doesn't apply to you, you do not have to worry about sending in your English proficiency. Okay, and then I'll hand it off to Carrie and she'll go in more depth about the application.
Okay, So as Jesse mentioned, we require official transcripts as part of the application process, and it's from every institution where credit was attempted. So not necessarily completed, but where it was attempted. But we do need every institution where credit was completed as well. So every transcript that you have, we need to receive it. Now, an official transcript needs to be sent directly from your institution to Seattle University. So that means if you email it to us or upload it yourself into your Red Hawk admissions portal, it is not considered official because that means you handled it and it didn't come directly from the school to us. So if you have a question about why we're not marking a transcript as official, that's most likely the reason why is because we received it from you and not the school. The registrar's offices at schools, they're the ones who manage transcript processes. So if you don't know how to send a transcript, then the registrar would be the office that you would check in with at your school to learn more about their process. We strongly encourage students to submit their official transcripts electronically when possible. Schools can email them to us directly at admissions@seattleu.edu, but there's also two large like third-party providers, Parchment and National Student Clearinghouse, where students can also request transcripts to be sent. Those often come to us electronically as well. We can receive electronic transcripts much faster than we can mailed transcripts. But if necessary, they can be mailed. We recognize there are some institutions that will only mail a transcript. So that can work as well, but certainly if you are mailing a transcript, you really should do that this week because the application deadline is 2 weeks from tomorrow. Now, for students who are enrolled in fall quarter coursework, we're going to request an updated transcript with your fall quarter grades by January 5th. So a lot of times students may think because you're enrolled in courses now, you don't need to submit your transcripts by the December 1st deadline, but we do still need that. We need your transcripts in the most current version that they are in by December 1st, and then we just request another transcript again by January 5th. Okay. So the next one is about English proficiency, which Jesse mentioned is another requirement for applicants for whom English is not one of their first or native languages, and this is regardless of English language studies, academic history, residence in the United States, other English-speaking countries, or immigration status. Now, transfer students are most often meeting this requirement through their coursework, and especially BSN transfer students, just because we have minimum grade requirements and credit requirements that kind of go hand in hand. It's what we look for meeting English proficiency that way. So if you're meeting it through coursework, you need to have 45 transferable quarter credits, a 3.0 GPA, as well as a B grade or higher in like an English composition or writing from research course. So again, like the BSN requires a 3.0 GPA we require 90 transfer credits. So as long as you took an English course, you're probably well on track to fulfill English proficiency through your coursework. But in the case that does not apply for you, we also accept TOEFL, IELTS, Duolingo scores. We rarely see the other three things on here, but possibly the U.S. bachelor's degree. But since we're not really looking at high school information for this application process, if you're not meeting English proficiency through coursework, then usually it would be TOEFL, IELTS, or Duolingo. And you can see what the specific scores are, on our website for each of those tests. Okay, so this is a very important slide because this includes what the prerequisites are in order to apply for the program. There's a list of 10 prerequisites, but they're also grouped into like different sub areas, and within the sub areas, we need different things completed. So it's quite complicated. But the main thing to remember is there are 10 prerequisites and every single one needs to be completed by the end of spring term 2024. So if you're applying for fall 2024, these all have to be completed by spring term 2024. I will mention, this info session, all the dates we're providing, we're gearing this towards a fall 2024 application cycle, but certainly if any of you in the Zoom room are looking further ahead for fall 2025, of course, some things may be different, but we're mainly talking about fall 2024 here. So the 10 prerequisites are introductory biology with a cellular and molecular focus, introductory chemistry, statistics, anatomy and physiology 1 with lab, anatomy and physiology 2 with lab, microbiology with lab, introductory psychology, lifespan psychology, human nutrition, college algebra for business, or pre-calculus or high. So I want to give some clarifying points about some of these courses. So anatomy, physiology 1 and 2, and microbiology, they all have to have a lab. With biology and chemistry, lab is preferred but not required. With anatomy and physiology 1 and 2, there are some institutions that split it. So there might be one sequence of anatomy, one sequence of physiology. I believe Everett Community College is a local example of this. So just because if you went to an institution where your subjects were split up, it doesn't necessarily mean it won't qualify. We just check the equivalency of the courses, and if all the right content was covered, we would accept it. Like I said, we do have students applying who took their anatomy and physiology split up. The lifespan psychology, that needs to cover birth through death. This is a course where, the content might be taught a little bit differently from school to school. So the main thing we're looking for is that it covers birth through death. And then the college algebra for business, pre-calculus or higher. This has to be completed as a college course or a qualifying test, which we'll show on a future slide what test scores qualify. But we get a lot of questions about whether or not, if you took algebra in high school, if that can just fulfill it. And that answer is a no. It has to be a college course or a qualifying test score. If you took a higher level math like calculus, that will qualify. You don't have to go back and take lower math. And another really common question is if you took statistics, if that can just count for the college algebra. It cannot. Both are separate requirements and both have to be completed. The content that's covered in a statistics and a college algebra class is very different. So this is not about us needing to see a quantitative or a math course. This is about applicants needing to have adequate preparation in those two distinct subjects so that they can be prepared for the nursing coursework and also for the certification exams they have to take. And the content that is covered in college algebra is vital for those certifications. So that is why they are both required, and one cannot fulfill the other. So the reason why these courses are grouped into two sides of the screen is because we also have time span components. So everything on the left there needs to have been completed within 5 years of a program start term. So if we're talking 2024, that means these need to have been completed 2019 or later. It's a calendar year, not an academic year. So even if you completed chemistry in winter 2019, it's a little outside of 5 years technically from fall 2024, but you're still okay because it's the calendar year. And then the ones that need to be within 10 years are over there on the right side of the screen. So if any are expired, then you do need to plan to retake them again by the end of spring term 2024. So even though you have a little bit of extra time to complete every single thing, you have until the end of spring, there are certain things we have to see completed by the end of fall in order to review your application. So there's 10 prerequisites. We need to see 7 of the 10 prerequisites complete. Within those 7, at least one of them needs to be a core science. Core science is the anatomy and physiology and the microbiology. And we also need to see that at least one of the math courses is complete. So unfortunately, if you have not completed either statistics or college algebra by the end of fall, you would not be eligible to apply for fall 2024, for example, because we have to see these certain groupings of courses complete. And again, if you have any of these in progress during the fall, you have the opportunity to submit your updated transcripts by January 5th. So in that scenario that I just mentioned, like if you're enrolled in statistics or you haven't completed statistics or college algebra as of today, but you're in statistics right now, don't worry, you're still eligible because we go off of your updated transcript. That's where the prerequisite form that Jossie was talking about is so important, because as long as we see that you're enrolled in the right things to have all these qualifications complete by the end of fall term, not by December 1st, but by the end of fall term, then it's still okay. So it is a little bit confusing that the application deadline is a little bit before when we actually need courses to be done, but don't worry. All of these things at the bottom have to be done by the end of December, not December 1st. So that's why we just need an accurate application from you in terms of your coursework. All right, so I mentioned test scores earlier. You know, math tends to be the one we receive most commonly that people want to fulfill with a test, but there are other prerequisites that can be fulfilled with a test. So they're all here. I would say AP is probably most common, but we do accept IB and CLEP scores for certain subjects as well. Statistics, as you can see, there is only AP that would qualify. And again, these need to be the tests themselves. So like having completed an AP Calculus class in high school does not fulfill a prerequisite. You have to have a qualifying test score. And this is also subject to time frame requirements as well. So even if you got a 5 in AP Calculus in 2008, that would be outdated. So you'd have to retake the class. Also with math, we often get questions about like if you had to take a placement exam at your college to place out of math, or like if you can take a placement exam here at Seattle U, that is also, that will not fulfill a prerequisite. What you're seeing on the screen here is the only sort of test that can substitute an actual college course. Okay, so if you want to know about courses you've taken that have fulfilled prerequisites, then we have what's called a transfer equivalency tool. At the end of the presentation, if anyone has questions, we're happy to give you like a brief demo of it, and we can share our screen and show you. But the transfer equivalency tool is a way that you can search for your courses to see if they fulfill prerequisites. And if you have any questions, you can always email us because there are certain like nuanced components to this. And one really important component is that the way the tool works is that we evaluate courses as we go, essentially. So for the Washington State Community Colleges, for example, we have a lot of equivalencies already determined. Most people can usually find how their courses will transfer. But from institutions where maybe not a lot of transfer students have come from in the past, if you don't see a course on the transfer equivalency tool, that doesn't mean it's because it won't transfer. It just means somebody else has not transferred with that course yet, and we haven't had the opportunity to review it. So those are instances where you're welcome to reach out to ask for additional information. But at this point, with the application deadline being about 2 weeks away, if you think you have a course that will fulfill a prerequisite, we would advise just applying because we have very limited capacity to be doing equivalency reviews prior to students applying. The equivalency reviews is what happens through your application review. So, you know, we do our best to try to check on courses for you as we're able, but with 2 weeks, we will have limited capacity. So we would encourage you just to apply so you can be considered. If you're coming from a college in Washington, either a 4-year or a 2-year, we also have really just straightforward grids on our website where you can see exactly what the courses are you should be taking at each course. So we can link those as well. Okay, so there are some additional things you need to complete, or some additional requirements you need to meet, I should say. So one of them is a 3.0 or higher GPA, which is both prerequisite and cumulative. The prerequisite GPA is your average between those 10 courses. If you've only completed 7 right now, then it's the average between those 7. We basically calculate within the prerequisites. And then the cumulative GPA is the average from every single course you've ever taken. So that includes prerequisites and non-prerequisites. We do require a minimum grade of 2.0 or higher in each prerequisite course. So if you earned a 1.7 in microbiology, that would not be considered a prerequisite that is fulfilled, and you would have to retake it. We also have a repeat policy, however, that's important to be aware of, and that is that eligible students can have no more than 2 total repeated prerequisite courses. The exception to that would be if your course was outdated. So, you know, if you took statistics in 2015 and you have to retake it, we're not going to count that towards the 2 because that's not really something you can control. That's something that you would have to do to apply. But for the other repeats, they could look two different ways. So it could either be two different prerequisites, each repeated once. That counts as two repeated prerequisites, or it could be one prerequisite repeated twice. So maybe you retook lifespan psychology and you retook intro to biology. That's two repeats. Or maybe you took intro to biology 3 times. So that's 2 repeats because you repeated the course twice. So that's how we look at that. Applicants generally have a lot of questions about the repeats. So you're welcome to reach out to your counselor for more information about your situation. If it's something that you want the admissions committee to be aware of, like if there were extenuating circumstances that led to you needing to repeat a course, you're welcome to include that in your application. And it doesn't have to take space in your essay either, because there is an option in your essay to write additional information about things that you want to provide context on. So you don't need to worry about changing the subject of your essay to add that kind of thing in. You have like a standalone section where you're welcome to provide information. Now we have some other requirements that have to do with needing to transfer in as a junior so that you can follow along the curriculum as part of the cohort like Jesse was talking about. So what that is saying is that you need to have a transferable associate's degree or previous bachelor's degree or the equivalent of junior standing, which would be 90 quarter credits or 60 semester credits. Those need to be transferable credits, which means that they're college level courses, 100 level or higher, and academic, so not like vocational or technical. So a transferable associate's degree would be like usually like an Associate of Arts, or in Washington State, we have one called the Direct Transfer Agreement, DTA. Those are associate's degrees that are specifically set up to transfer to four-year universities so students come in as juniors. An example of an associate's degree that is not transferable would be an Associates of Applied Science. Again, those are usually more for vocational technical programs. Even if you have that degree and 90 credits, those are usually not all transferable. Does not mean you can't apply. It just means you have to make sure that you're fitting on the right amount of transferable credits on top of the associate's degree. And again, the reason for this is students have to come in as juniors because that's how the cohort works. There is just simply not time in the BSN curriculum to fit in additional credits that you need to graduate. On that same note, that's why we require certain university core classes to have been completed prior to starting. When I say to have been completed, I don't mean at CLU, I mean through transferable credits. So we have six university core classes that we're particularly focused on. One of them is a math course, one of them is a natural science course that are automatically fulfilled through your prerequisites. But the other 4 that we really need to see are English composition, art, humanities, and social science. The next slide shows some examples of what could fulfill those subjects. Again, the reason for this is if you don't come in with an art class, there is no time in your schedule to take an art course at Seattle University. It would mean you have to graduate late, you have to course overload, which is very hard to do, or you have to take a course during the summer. And scholarships and most aid is not available during the summer, so you'd be paying out of pocket. So it's a very serious financial and time burden to be fitting in extra courses. That's why we focus so heavily on this. If you come in with certain transferable associate's degrees, the university core requirements should be fulfilled. Also, if you come in with previous bachelor's degree, your university core requirements are fulfilled. So this really just applies to students who have non-transferable associate degrees or students who are essentially taking their courses a la carte. So not part of a degree program, but they're just picking and choosing and adding up to 90. If that's your situation, that does not fulfill university core unless you're specifically taking these subjects. So here you can see like what the subjects would be. The UCore 1100, which is the English, that's pretty easy. It's just like a research writing class. Those are usually easy to find. The UCore 1300, hands-on art, so something where you're making the art like photography, ceramics, painting. That's the safest, but with a high credit amount, you can also fulfill it through other areas. And then 1600 humanities and social science, you can see a wide array of subjects there. Now with these, we don't have direct equivalencies, so you're not going to be able to look at our equivalency tool and say, like, oh, my history course equals UCORE 1400. It doesn't work like that because we make it more by subject. So we look at those one by one and just make sure that like it is enough of a humanities course or a social science course to satisfy. Okay, so the BSN application process has a lot of requirements, as we've talked about at length here, but there are a few things that are not required. So a little bit of breathing room there. So we don't require high school transcripts or the SAT or ACT scores. We also don't require a TEAS test, and we don't require recommendation letters. While we don't require recommendation letters, we also don't accept them. So if you want to submit it as a supplementary material, it will not be accepted. So that's just one thing that you can save yourself some time for requesting and sending in, because it will not be added to your application file. Okay, so the way that we review applications is holistic review. So we look at many different components together to see how they fit together. So on the one hand, we need to look for those basic, like, have you completed the minimum requirements? Like, are you on track to be a junior? Have you completed the right prerequisites that we showed on those slides? Do you have the 3.0 cumulative and prerequisite GPA? We need to see those at the very minimum to be able to review your application. But beyond that, then we're also looking at several other factors. So while a 3.0 is the minimum GPA for consideration, students who are admitted typically have GPAs that are 3.5 or higher. So we are looking at your grades, particularly your performance in the prerequisites and the sciences. We want to see a consistent and an upward grade trend. So we'll look at all of those different things. Again, the essay section is available to you if you have any areas of your grade trend that you want to speak to and provide context on. With the SU fit and the essays, you know, what we're really wanting to see is who you are as a person, as a community member, as a candidate for this program. That's where we really get to see, as Jesse said, your passion for nursing. We get to see like how you connect to Seattle U's mission. We get to see the wide variety of things you've been involved in. Again, we're not looking for a certain set of experiences. We have some students apply for this program after 2 years of college. We have some students apply for this program after 30 years of work experience. Going back to complete prerequisites, everyone is applying with a very different set of experiences. We welcome that and we like to read about that. What we want to see is just that you have an understanding of healthcare and a connection to it, a true motivation to be part of the profession, and a true motivation to be part of the Seattle University community. So we get to learn all about that through your essays, your activity log. Yeah, and here's just an image of something that you should all, if you can't already see this, if you, for anybody in the room who has applied already, when you apply by December 1st, you will see this. As soon as you submit your application, you have access to the Red Hawk admissions portal, where you can see kind of where things stand. So if you see like this image at the top, the ready for review, that's our mascot there, Rudy the Red Hawk. That means that we are ready to review your application. Now, one thing that is important to call out is you may be in that status even if there's a red X on your checklist, like you see in that image right there. So what that means is, like we said, for instance, fall transcripts is a pretty common example. If you have fall courses in progress, you are going to have a checklist item that says you need to submit your fall transcripts. But that doesn't mean that like your application is held up or we're not going to review it. Like your application is still in a review stage, but we just need to receive the transcript by January 5th. There are a few other things that would fit in that category. I think a really big one is students who have future enrollment at an institution, maybe one that they're only going to attend in spring 2024. You'll still see a red X on your checklist for that institution. International students who have indicated they will study here on an F1 visa will also see some checklist items for declaration of finances and bank statements that you do not need to submit in order to have your application reviewed. Those are only required if you choose to enroll. Another big one is the FAFSA. If you've indicated you want to apply for need-based financial aid, you will have a FAFSA checklist item, but that also does not prevent your application from being reviewed. So just remember what you're looking for is you're not looking for all green check marks, but you're looking for that green bar that says ready for review. Now, if your portal matches the image at the bottom where it says action needed, that means that the checklist items that you're seeing, the red X's that you're seeing, are actually preventing us from reviewing your application, and you need to take action to submit those materials. So that's the difference in like the two situations you might have. We send a ton of emails to students about what they need to do to complete their application. So it is vital that you check your email regularly, that you make sure emails are not sent to go to like a spam folder for Seattle U, because this is how we are going to communicate with you. All right, so that is our email address, transfer@seattleu.edu. If you want to reach out to the transfer admissions team, when you email that address, then we route your email to your specific counselor. So either Jesse, Jennifer, or myself, but you can always start by just contacting transfer@seattleu to get connected. Okay, so now we have time for some questions. So let's see. Okay, so we have one that says, for English proficiency, I have completed listing some courses. Out of the courses that were listed, English 101 with a grade of 4.0 would qualify. If English 101 is a course that you're referring to in the Washington State Community College system. For anyone who's attending Washington State Community College, English 101 is the course. See a raised hand. Jesse, I'm not